Welcome to episode 13. This week, instead of the spooky Bible stories that I had planned, I have invited a special guest to chat with me. My longtime friend, Raymond Tilley, is here to join us as the token skeptic. I don't know what would you call yourself? The biblical cynic.
The objective voice of reason.
Right. Right, exactly. So I, of course, am a wholehearted believer in God Almighty, Jesus Christ, creation, Bible prophecy, all of that good stuff. And you and I have, over the course of many decades, had lovely conversations surrounding our differences of opinions in this area. Today, I wanted to, because it's so timely. That war erupted in Israel, and like our last episode, we were just discussing end times prophecy, and there's so much end times prophecy about like Israel and Jerusalem and blah blah blah. So but before we get into any of that, why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us your background with the Christian church?
The Christian church?
Well, Christianity. And why you love it. Right.
Well, that's a large question, Kristin.
Right.
So,
well, we can edit. We will edit so much.
I will say, from a very young age, I had a great deal of skeptic insight, even in going to church with my parents and my grandparents. They had this deep-rooted faith in a thing that, of course, you can't see, tangibly touch. And I did not believe in things that I could not tangibly touch. And I was very skeptical about all of the rules that felt imposed upon and somewhat arbitrary. Moving forward into my life, the more Christians I met, the more fanatical they seemed to be. They had an intense amount of energy and belief in mysticism. It's as if anyone who tried to refute the mysticism of the one book, the one truth, then they found it seriously offensive. And they want to get sucked up in the giant vacuum cleaner, and they want to be part of the eternal love on the other side of things. And they spend the totality of their lives.
The giant vacuum cleaner being the rapture.
Sure, right. You call it the rapture. Yeah. God's vacuum cleaner to suck up the particles of Christians. Yeah, the good ones, right. The bad, the dirty bits get to stick around. And having enjoyed that experience across a number of years, as well as being shackled in a town in West Texas, I'll call it Gilead. I don't want to disclose the actual location of the town, but one of the ways that you can identify
it is find you. They will hunt you down. They will find you. They will string you up by your toenails. Yeah.
But if they honestly believe that they can talk in tongues and that the best course of action is to hang people over a concrete wall with ropes, and many Christians fall into that passionate fundamentalist view, I think that it's more mental illness and a desire to believe in like mystical things. And I think all people throughout time want to believe in mystical things. So It's a bit of my background, a bit of my contempt. And so, with that being
A
said,
bit of my contempt, but still so much more to come, and that's what we're looking forward to this evening. Okay, so speaking of desire, like this, uh, like fascination with the end and counting down the days and looking for the signs. That's exactly what we're going to talk about this evening.
that's fantastic.
Because, yeah.
I
So,
too am preparing and hoping for the end, but mostly out of contempt because I want to watch all the fanatical people, die. So much in I don't want to be a participant, of course, in their death, but very much in the way that they've created like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like the end must be near because I divided by 7 and counted the apostles, and it has to be July 23rd. I just want to sit back and watch it because I'm like, it's a fucking freak show for sure. So.
well, I won't have to watch it because I will be sucked up in a big vacuum.
And that is
So,
the view that most, I think that's the thing that helps people sleep well at night is feeling that each one of you is so special
it
that you'll get
does.
sucked up. Yeah.
It
So,
it does. It does help me sleep well at night. I'm like, "Wow, the whole world's going down the toilet and everybody's awful everywhere." And um but I know that in the end of the story, I'm on the side of the winners. So,
and you're filled
I
with
get to
ever
spend
eternal love and joy, right?
right. And
Yeah.
I get to um spend eternity in paradise.
I hate
So, who
paradise.
doesn't want
Paradise sounds
that?
awful.
Oh, right. Okay, what's your idea of paradise?
Microwave popcorn and watching humanity burn to the ground. Well, as long as I've got copious amounts of popcorn and to watch them
Do you have to have a microwave though? Can you just have the popcorn and like
do it over a
roast it?
campfire. I'm adaptive. Yeah.
Pour over, the burning bodies of, you know,
Christians. Yeah,
the
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whoever, you know. I think popcorn can be cooked in a multitude of ways with a multitude of grease. But your
Right.
your curiosity is that yet again something has happened, and it could be the time. The signs are here, and we've divided by, the amount of apostles by the pages in the Bible, and we know that next week. So let's start with next week. And you
Okay, well, I don't think anything's going to happen next. Well, I don't know that anything isn't going to happen next week, but I don't have a prediction on when anything's going to happen. But I do think that this is a significant event, like a significant historical event. This whole war with Israel. I mean, so for basically as long as Israel has existed as a nation, or as a people before it was even a nation, everybody has hated them, right? I mean, you know,
yeah, for
in
good reason, but
ancient
yeah.
times, I mean, not even biblical accounts, but historical accounts about the Israelite people, being slaves in Egypt, being um, what owned by the Babylonians or enslaved by the Babylonians, and I don't know, on and on and on and on and on.
So this
All
is
that
not
shit.
the first. This is not the first go around that Israel conflict. So I know that here in the United States, we'd love to believe that they're the chosen, and they would like to believe that they are the chosen. And there's a certain degree of hubris that comes with being the people of God. And unfortunately, the people on the other side of the fence are also the people of God. And so now you've got too many people of God that dislike each other for a casual 10,000 fucking years, right? And each one's trying to one up the other. This is not the first time they've had conflict. They've got this down pat. I think what we fail to realize is all the undertones of cultural conflict that happen consistently between Palestine and Israel. But we also do,
Here.
you know, Israel will be quick to say that they've done nothing, that they're just the poor, innocent people of God that have been disparaged, you know, for thousands of years and nobody likes them. But they're quick to say they're the chosen people of God and that they should be allowed to do their thing.
And they're quick to claim that people should side with them because it is written. It's written in the
Yes.
Quran and it's written in the Bible. Back in like what Genesis 12 or something, when um, God is blessing Abraham and blah blah blah, and he's like, "Your nation should anybody who sides against your nation, I'll bring my wrath against them," or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, Something along those lines. And then he says it again. God says it again to Jacob. Um, so Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Um, he says it again, or maybe he said it to Isaac. I don't know. Whatever the hell. No, I think he said it to Jacob. Said that he would, um, like protect the nation, the mighty nation that was going to come out of that lineage, and that any nation who sided against him would incur God's wrath. So, yeah. So, that is a big issue with like the United States sending, always trying to side with Israel, I think, because this nation was founded on Christianity, right? So, they're like, well, we don't want to be the nations that are opposing uh, Israel and incur God's wrath. So that's why I guess, I don't, as far as I'm aware, the president hasn't taken any action yet. Have you heard anything?
No, but
I
we
don't think
dump
he has.
enough of our defense budget into Israel pretty consistently. So, you know, we
Right.
consistently are taking annually the billions of dollars that go into their defense budget from us, I feel like is a statement of our support. And also, to their
I
sense of
wouldn't even know.
entitlement and hubris,
But
because
yeah.
you know they're the chosen of God. You don't want to, you don't want to wage war against God. But I feel like it also entitles them at times to make decisions that incite the conflict, right? So
Right. Well, they're not going to budge an inch because why should they? They are the chosen nation of God.
that's right.
So,
So I have to give either a bit of skepticism to God's insight as to maybe he picked the wrong people or he should choose differently. Or maybe it's just a narrative that they wrote their own fucking book. So, of course, they elected themselves to be the chosen people. If I was writing a book about me, I would choose myself to be the chosen one, you know, Ray is the chosen person. Like, you know, you should believe me because, well, that's what I say. We go far enough back in
well, if
history. We
you
have
look at the lineage of Jesus, I mean, the whole point in the chosen nation of Israel was to get the lineage of Jesus. And so, God chose a, a decent human here and a decent human there out of a whole, wrecking ball of, nasty humankind, and, tried to line them up in a way that they could lead to Jesus. But not everybody in Jesus' lineage is, an upstanding individual. I mean, there's prostitutes and killers and adulterers and all kinds of lovely folks. So,
most of
but I
them are
guess there were
probably
one or
leading
two
churches.
decent,
So.
right? Yeah, all those characteristics are just like one pastor on a normal Sunday. Um, uh, but okay, so do you know much about like the lineage of um, Israel, like how it came to be, and the bodies that oppose Israel, like how that went down in the Bible?
Some, yes. So I'm not a subject matter expert. I
Sure.
enough that if I needed to, I could dig into it deeper and become
Okay, well,
more
I know
versed.
basic stuff, and then I looked it up. Um, and anyway, so this is what I found interesting. Okay, so Abraham, right, is the father of the nation of Israel. He's the one who got the original blessing, and I'm going to make, your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and blah, blah, blah. So, but Abraham's like, well, how's that supposed to happen? Because, like, I'm 90 something years old and my wife is, you know, 80, 90 at the time too. And, we haven't had babies so far. So how's that going to happen? And God's like, well, you just got to trust me. Well, they didn't really trust him. And so Sarah's like, hey, my vagina's dried up. There's no way I'm going to be producing a child anytime soon. I haven't dropped an egg in, 40 years. How am I going to have a baby? So she's like, take my handmaiden, Hagar, and, sleep with her. And that's what Abraham's like, well, all right, if you want me to have the, saucy young lady, then fine. And so he sleeps with her. Well, Hagar isn't all that excited about it. She's essentially being raped,
By
Handmaid's
Gandalf,
Tale.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, by Candle. And so she ends up getting pregnant, and that child is named Ishmael. Well, then God's like pissed because they went and took their own route. And so he waits even longer for him to have their baby. And then finally, Sarah, at like the age of 90 or whatever, gets pregnant and bears their first child together. And that is Isaac, right? So you've got Ishmael and Isaac. Well, Sarah then is jealous of Hagar and Ishmael, and she sends them away. So Ishmael and his descendants, he becomes like the father of the 12 Arabian tribes. And so, and also like his descendants, like Muhammad is one of his descendants. So, like, in true lineage. So, anyway, all the Arab nations and stuff are descendants of Ishmael, apparently. And Isaac, of course, then goes on to have Jacob as his son. And then actually, Isaac has two sons, Esau and Jacob. And Esau is the oldest, and he's supposed to be the birthright, and he's supposed to be the one in the lineage. But he sells his birthright to his brother, and then his brother tricks his father on his deathbed into giving him the birthright blessing, and it's this whole big ordeal. And so Jacob becomes then the lineage to Christ, and Esau goes off, and he, like, his whole blessing from his father was basically, you shall live by the sword, and blah blah blah, your toil, and blah blah blah. And so Esau's descendants are now scattered among the Arab states and Turkey, as well as Palestine. So you've got a lot of nations that came out of people scorned by Abraham and his descendants. Does that make any sense?
I
What
do.
are your thoughts? What
So
what are your thoughts on that?
it is so convoluted that it sounds like the original reality show that it's there's a whole lot of sex, illegitimate children, people being scorned, women against women. Yeah, hatred about who's who in the giant sandbox of give a shit. But it also, like, still,
But it also sounds
regardless.
like my subdivision.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So humans haven't
it's not
changed
like this
much.
is extraordinarily,
No.
crazy shit. Shit happens daily.
Well, yeah. Except for these motherfuckers have now held on to this, and, like, they've built tribes and armies and swords, and, like, you know,
All right.
thousands of years ago, someone said, "You're gonna live by the sword," and it's like, and they've stuck with it. Not much has changed. Show me the evolutionary process of where these people have evolved, and it's like they're still in that same petty mind space of, based on their lineage. I don't even know who my lineage is. For all I know, that I'm a bastard child of a farmer and an alien experiment, right? And I don't care. But for those people, it really like defines who their identity is. And somehow that cultural identity, in fairness, causes conflict and again and again and again over the course of thousands of years. No?
Well, that's one way to look at it.
So this week, what was the pissing match over? You know, the,
Well, they came
children,
in and killed like 700 people
the
in a surprise
chosen.
attack. That's what the fancy.
Well, so it was the chosen people, and then effectively the descendants of Ishmael. So they're still having conflict
Right.
over whatever the fuck it is they're having conflict about. So
Right. The tribes of
yes,
Jacob and the tribes of Ishmael and Esau are right. So, anyway, I found that very interesting because all of those nations are so greatly opposed to Israel. And those are the same nations that are the descendants of these people that got kicked out of the chosen lineage
mm,
for no fault of their own. Well, kind of Esau was a little bit of fault of his own. He was just a dumbass, but he was like, "I'm starving. Give me some of the soup you made." And his brother was like, "Oh, if you sell me your birthright for it," and he was like, "Fine, whatever. Just give me the soup." And so, anyway,
so
apparently,
in the book of mystical shit, once upon a time, there was conflict
uh-huh.
over soup, and X amount of thousands of years later, here we are, like still like putting an immense amount of value on the book of mystical shit and the prophecies that must come true. And if they don't come true, they almost seem self-fulfilling at this point, and they're still circling around the same eternal conflict of birthrights and soup. Like that matters to some
but
people.
but the opposing nations aren't ascribing to the biblical prophecy. They're not studying biblical prophecy and saying we should probably rise up against Israel and try to destroy it as a nation so that we get smited by God. Let's go
Fair
ahead and pray
point.
for that.
Yeah.
So, but that shit is still happening.
Well, and it isn't like so. There's for those folks whether or not they're subscribing to the prophecy, right? Israel is also culpable in creating a lot of that conflict. And so if you constantly had the chosen people coming over and like saying, you know what, we're going to go ahead and take your subdivision because, well,
Okay.
we're the fucking chosen.
Nanny boo boo, you
We're,
can't catch me.
yeah, we're the chosen. So I mean, at some point, it's like the kids in school that come from the affluent part of town. We're the chosen. And at some point, it's just like people are like, well, yeah, well, let's see how the chosen react when they blow up, right? And so there's like the ultimate,
Right.
like, it's like
See how
it's the
chosen you
old,
feel back behind the dumpster when I beat the living shit out of you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So blow you up and see how you bleed, chosen. And so. And then, of course, the whingy chosen are like, we didn't see that coming. We did nothing. This just came out of the blue. We are super nice people. We are the chosen people. We were just taking what's rightly ours because it was destiny that we take everybody else's subdivision because clearly they didn't want it. And so, you know, I can understand if you are always on the side of in modern times having things taken and pushed by people that have that kind of hubris. It tends to instigate a bit of
So
conflict.
I know jack shit about uh world politics, and I know probably even less about world history. Um I do know a decent amount of Bible history. And
You follow your passions, right?
that's right. But are there instances that you're aware of that Israel like tried to conquer other lands? Don't they pretty much just are like we just want the promised land? The land promised to us by God, and we just stick here. Now, maybe they're complete assholes. I don't know, because I've never been there. I've never really interacted with people from Israel that I'm aware of. But maybe they're complete assholes and instigators to everyone around them, but I don't think they're out there like trying to take over other lands. Whereas there are a lot of governments and nations that are trying to take over Israel. Is that right? Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
I
Fair
don't know.
question. I don't know. Like what other
I mean,
governments and people? Well, in fairness, their chunk got carved out post World War II. So,
right,
we delineated a square and said, here, chosen people, you've been gassed for last 10 years. You're going to have a safe spot in the sandbox. This is your square, chunk of the sand. And so, right, wrong, or
right.
indifferent, that area has been struggling with groups of people, to your point, and their lineages, through throughout the course of many of those same passionate books that everyone has their book that believes in their truth.
So the Palestinians think, like at least Jerusalem belongs to them, right? I mean, don't they? Muhammad was born in Mecca or something. I don't fucking know. I really don't fucking know. So I could be just making this shit up, but something along those lines. And so the Islam nations see that um, area like Jerusalem as sacred, but
Mm-hmm.
then the Israel also sees Jerusalem as sacred, and so basically it's a war between the two to try to get a
Sacred
hold
land.
of Jerusalem. Yeah,
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 I think at the core that's it. I think over the course of time, it's become so muddied with contemporary politics that Israel needs to expand. They have needs of people that they need to build subdivisions and they need resources. Well, the thing that's getting in their way of that expansion is the Palestinians also have land and also need subdivisions. And so to me, it feels like, yes, there's that historical context, but it's also like socioeconomics as well as like, environmental resources.
dude.
They all need water. They all need agricultural land. And so,
Right.
regardless of whether or not it's sacred, now the push and shove, I think, is a matter of cultural survival over, you know, finances, resources, and so there's a resource dependency. And so, yes, we can go back in time and like point the finger and say on a religious value, but even on a day to day value, if you don't have any place to grow your population and you need more subdivisions, and your neighbor who you happen to dislike for the last 5,000 years happens to have a subdivision and some
Right.
water, why don't you go ahead and take his lunchbox? And so I think it's a battle of lunchboxes as much as it's a battle of religious principles.
Well, what's crazy to me is Israel is very small. Like compared to the surrounding nations, it's just this tiny, teeny, tiny, teeny strip of land. And then there's all these massive, Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan and all these other huge nations right by there. And but everybody is trying to get this little strip of Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. I mean, you're looking at like a world map. You can't even find Israel. You have to kind of blow it up. I have to put on my reading glasses to
Oh,
find
they're
it.
working on blowing it up.
Because
You're right.
well, they are working on blowing it up. They gave it a good college try at least a couple days ago.
Uh, this happens every decade or so where, whatever the fuck it is they're fighting about, whatever lunchbox. But the beauty of it is that all the exterior people, especially people here in the United States, that cream their pants over the idea of the vacuum cleaner, they're waiting for this, and they're like, the
Rapture.
sign is here. I divided by
Yeah,
seven
that's a
and took this
yes.
I took the square root of give a fuck and like divided it by the miracles in the Bible, and like this is it. And then like, and then they get all excited and they're waiting because they want to get sucked into the paradise beyond,
Yeah.
or so I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Yeah,
Okay.
because really this world hasn't offered a lot of things that have, been all that worth
I
it.
don't disagree. I don't
But
disagree.
yeah, but so me being one of those people that's fascinated with like the chronology of the end times, and I'm like, I want to know. I want to know. I'm not like out there crazy looking for signs, but if big shit happens, like a worldwide pandemic or, massive earthquakes that take out entire nations or Israel going to war, things like this, then I'm like, well, okay, how does this fit in or does it fit in? And so I was going down this deep rabbit hole earlier today, looking up this stuff, trying to find the chronology of biblical prophecy. And it was a little too overwhelming. I couldn't really uh, figure most of it out. But the big war, apparently, it's just supposed to be like smaller wars and, of course, rumors of wars leading up to the rapture. It's supposed to be, well, according to biblical prophecy, Raymond, according to biblical
If
prophecy,
you believe, yes.
yes, if you believe, well, I mean, this is what it says, regardless. It says when Israel is reunited as a nation, that is a beginning of the birth pangs leading to the end times. So Israel was reunited as a nation in 1948. So, um, and then, oh, where did I find the whole list of things that the Bible says are the like the list of crap that's supposed to happen. Oh, here it is. Okay. Or at least these are the signs of the birth pangs. Okay, leading up to the rapture. And then after that comes the tribulation, 7 years of tribulation, and then after that comes the second coming of Christ. But these are the 12 major worldwide trends um, that are supposed to happen. Okay, false Christs, so false prophets, um,
College football.
war,
So yeah, yeah. So
yeah, that too.
so the Bible's the
Ethnic
Bible's crypt the
conflict.
Bible's cryptic enough that the people of Gilead sat around and like tried to like everyone's trying to figure out what those cryptic clues mean, and so they project their
Yeah.
own like their worldview into it, right? And
Well,
the
yeah.
case in
I
point,
mean, these 12 major worldwide trends are very generic. I mean, false leaders, war, ethnic conflict, economic warfare, famines, pestilence, earthquakes, quote unquote troubles of many kinds.
yeah. What type of
So,
ambiguous?
you know,
So like part of my grievance with the
right.
Bible has been the
Promotions.
ambiguous
Yeah.
shit, right? So like they just wrote down the things that plague humanity for thousands of years, like everything in there, false leaders, wars, plagues and famines. That's the totality of the human existence, you know? There's never been a
Right.
time where that shit hasn't happened.
Right. Great signs from heaven and persecution. Those are so yeah, there's never been a time that there hasn't been persecution for all different peoples, not just
Yeah.
the people of Israel or the Christian people or
But
whatever.
Christian people
Everybody.
are also quick to persecute, and so like that's
Uh,
the
right. Yes, they are.
and it's not like when we say Christian that they're aligned. So, like the people of Gilead, like waving their arms and speaking in tongues, are vastly different than, many other faith groups, including some of the wackadoodle shit of the Catholic Church, and so uh, we say Christian, I can't like view Christians as what a homogenous group of people that they're all the same. Fuck, they're not even close to being the same. So
Right. Yeah. Well, it's basically like saying American or
yeah, right.
and saying that all those people are the same. I mean, there's a lot
So,
of diversity.
why do Christians have a passion for like searching for the clues? And they've been doing it now because, like, if you read back in history over the last few hundred years, Christians have been like seeking out and looking for affirmation of these prophecies. So, every time there's a plague, every time there's a war, they're always looking for
Yep.
that affirmation that,
Hey,
like,
how does this fit? Does this fit?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, is this it? Is this it? And, and it's concerning because at what point does it become self fulfilling? Like, at what point do they create opportunities for that prophecy to come to fruition? So if Christians start the wars and they're like, look, there's wars, the
Ugh,
prophecy is coming true.
it said
There's
there's supposed to
famine,
be wars. We better go out
so
and blow shit up. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, if systematically you help fulfill the prophecy, then you've created a self fulfilling prophecy. The Bible didn't really allude to anything if the Christians are doing it on their own. And which, by the way, once you start conflict, of course, people are going to conflict back. That's the nature of people. So, you know,
Sure. So, okay, that's interesting. And it makes me think of this other crap that I was looking into earlier today, and that's about um like the Great War of Armageddon. Um and how that's all supposed to go down. And it's supposed to be like four major superpower countries. Um and they're listed in the Bible by names, but those names no longer like exist as places on the planet, but you can trace where they are. I mean the location still exists. Those names for those locations have changed. Like, Istanbul and Constantinople, right? So um uh
you
so
just
one of them
quoted
is
Might Be Giant song in the midst of this.
yeah,
So
I
go
did.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
I
okay.
did. That's not unusual for me. Um so Russia, Turkey, and then like the Arab nations are the big players in the war, like the war of Armageddon, against Israel. They're all trying to destroy Israel. So, but what do Christians have to do with those countries? Because those are not Christian nations at all. So, where's the self fulfilling prophecy in that? How are Christians pushing like Russians to want to blow up Israel, or pushing Russians to try to unite with, or join forces with the Arab nations and with Turkey and
So, I mean, there's a lot of devout Russians. So, when we're talking about Russian people, or we're talking about Russian government and politics. So, like,
right.
I mean, I could just as equally say that America is not a Christian country. It's like there's plenty of,
Right.
tried and
Well, it's really
true
not
people.
anymore.
Well, but in having
Yeah.
said that, there's people of deep faith here in the United States. There's also people of deep faith in Russia, very similar to the United
Sure.
States. They don't have shit for control over what their government does, to your point.
Right.
And so,
Yeah. Well, like the war of Armageddon is supposed to be all politically motivated. So it talks about the powers rising up against the other powers, and the governments rising up against governments. So
so for the
anyway,
people for the people that like become titillated, I think titillated is a fair word. That like look at all the signs,
yeah.
and then they go to church on Sunday, and everyone on Sunday's like, the signs, and like
Ah!
then there's a group of people, and then before you know it, you can actually see the wet spot in their pants because they're excited because they want to get sucked away. So I'm like, if that's the case, then Like, but why so many people? Why are they so
It's
excited
almost more
about it?
political in that nature too. Oh, I'm subscribing to the right political party or the right religion so that I can, win the promised, everlasting paradise or whatever. It's it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with worshiping Jesus or wanting to just fucking love thy neighbor. And
I feel like if you are a devout person of faith, whatever that faith may be, but for the sake of conversation, we'll say Christian, and you adhere to the teachings of Jesus, then let go of when the time is going to come. Like, it doesn't matter if the clues are all there, because if you're good, it can happen in this moment, or it can happen in a million other moments. But if you're right with the great googly moogly and the omniscient power, and like Kane from Kung Fu, you do your business and you do it well, then you don't have to consistently watch each day like a fucking soap opera to see if, like, like what the next dramatic event is. Like, did Russia drive a car because it's prophesied that the metal thing that slides, across whatever? And
chariots,
it's like,
yeah.
fucking stop, man. It's like, stop trying to take ambiguous shit, jam it into the news, and then like get ready for the cosmic beam so that everybody on Sunday can, freak the fuck out about it. And it's like, maybe just live your faith.
Well, here's the deal. Here's why people want to know is because the Bible says that you need to keep a watch out, that you need to be prepared and not fall victim to like the teachings of false idols. So, yeah, you need to be prepared. But the Bible also
Diligent.
says, I know, but no one knows the exact day or time. And so it says, that Christ will return like a thief in the night. No one's no one's aware of when it's supposed to happen. So every time that somebody, or some cult or whatever tries to come up with some number, oh yeah, May 14th is the day, eh, then we automatically know that's not the day because the Bible says that no one's going to know. So why do people I don't understand that.
So being
But to
watchful
your
and diligent,
yeah, to your
like,
point,
is,
I'm interested in knowing about that shit because uh, you know, I want to know if shit's going to start going down. I want to be prepared.
you want to
But
throw in some
I'm
extra
not
prayers?
also what? Yeah, I want
You want
to
to
pack extra underwear and I want to
throw?
I
Well,
want to make
yeah,
sure my dogs have enough food for when I'm raptured, and they're left behind. Um,
yeah.
no, no, I mean, there's a lot of spiritual warfare that's supposed to happen, and I don't want to get tangled up in that. Um, but I forget where I was going to go with that. Yeah, I don't, I'm interested in it, but I'm not worried about it. Like, do I think it's going to happen in my lifetime? I don't fucking know. Probably not. I wish it would, but just so we can get it over with. But probably not. So, I'm not worried. I'm not freaking out about it and jizzing about it every day. But it
Well,
is
at least
interesting.
thank you for clarifying that you don't do it every day. And but I have worked with
Not
people.
every day.
I think people have that idea of ultimate paradise that's just like their lives are so miserable here that they've never learned. They're always like trying to project into that desire of, I want the ultimate paradise. And I guess my crisp criticism for Christians is that you're never going to fucking have it. No one ever in history is ever going to fucking have ultimate fucking paradise. And I think that as long as people continue to pursue that, even through their faith, it gets in the way of their faith. It's like, stop worrying about the paradise and start worrying about the integrity of Christ.
Right.
you know
Well, and trying to create paradise around yourself, by, well, at least unity, by loving other people and just being a decent fucking human being,
No.
doing good and not hating and, um, being selfish and just walking by someone in need or whatever. I don't know.
So
I say that,
how
but I'm not about to give people money to people on the street begging most of the time.
so they can go buy some more crystal meth, right? So
Right.
so Israel and Palestine are gonna like be doing this for a minute. This is what they do, and ultimately somebody will broker a peace between the two, and ultimately what that peace will look like is it'll come down to socioeconomics and resources, and telling both of them that dig into the hummus, share the falafel, and calm the fuck down. Israel, stay on your side of the line. Stop creeping into
Now
everybody
I'm
else's
hungry.
backyard. You know.
I love
It,
falafel.
well, so do I. So, and when they sit down, they both realize that they both love falafel and they both hate getting blown up, right? So that's, we as people
Good.
share a few things. We don't like to get blown up, which is fair. We all share in that experience. Um, and two, anybody who has a taste bud really loves falafel. So, yeah.
So, so originally we were going to talk about Bible stories, and I was just going to read you some Bible stories and get your take on them. But here's a Bible story I'm going to pull out of my ass talking about chosen. So, line of Jesus, um, Joseph, and you had mentioned Joseph in a conversation we had the other day about his colorful coat. Um, so Joseph was what, one of the 12 sons of who the hell ever, and um, he of Jacob. God, he was 12 sons of Jacob, and Joseph's older brothers hated him because Joseph was the favorite, and so they wanted to kill him, and they decided, no, we're not going to kill him. We're just going to throw him in a hole and let him die. But then, like, a band of like Egyptian travelers went by and they said, hey, we got somebody you can buy as a slave. He's here in this hole. And so they sold him to the Egyptians, and Joseph, like, this went off to Egypt, and they kept his fancy coat and they tore it up and they covered it in like pig blood, and they showed it to the dad and was like, oh, your son got attacked by a wild animal and now he's dead. And but so that's what happens when you like lord over your brothers, your siblings, that, hey, I've been having dreams that that you guys are all gonna bow down to me. And I've been having dreams that you guys are all gonna work for me someday. Yeah, they didn't like that.
So, in this book of mystical shit that I know every like detail of the book is absolute fact and can be proven, and there, Christians have spent a great deal of excessive amount of, we'll call it obsessive compulsive disorder, to prove that their mystical book of shit is fact, because people like me don't believe that it's fact. But are you familiar with the story of Icarus and his son?
Yeah, glued
Yeah, right.
close to
So,
the,
like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So they're captive. Somehow they amass like 4,000 pounds of pigeon feathers and like 32 gallons of beeswax. And they come up with the idea that they're going to, make wings out of, like, so I mean, we'll just like call bullshit and say there's no amount of beeswax or pigeons that could accomplish this thing. But moral of the
right.
story is that they make wings, they get out of jail, right? So they're flying, and we understand that if you soar too high and you soar too low, and then the sun crashes into the ocean and dies, be yada yada yada. So when we say that story and we talk about it, we know that that story is 100% bullshit. It's just like, but the moral of the story is, you know be mindful of your ego. And having said that, I feel like the vast majority of those stories in the Bible, there's people with magical coats. People are digging holes. Just random, like it's
Not
random
a
bullshit.
magical coat, Raymond.
Okay,
It's
so
just a colorful coat that showed that Daddy liked him best. He got the fancy coat.
gotcha.
There's
So
no
like what?
magical component to it.
So what? So there was a period of time. Who knows what the kids are wearing now? But like, we'll say that it's a starter jacket, right? So Daddy gave him
Yeah.
a starter jacket, and all the other brothers got thrift store jackets. And then
Mm-hmm.
he was like, "Man, I'm having dreams that I'm the bomb. I'm the fucking shizzle, and I'm gonna lead some shit." And so I got to tell
Mm-hmm.
you, you know because these people are so civilized, the solution to every problem is like they were always like, dig a hole, throw some shit in it. And they were always using pigs for the most random of fucking things all the time. Like the Bible uses pigs a lot, right? Like they could insert a few goats here and there to switch it up. But in the book of mystical shit, then he goes on this like spiritual journey, and he never really dies, and like he becomes elevated, and he uses his psychic powers, and people realize that he's the bomb. And eventually his brothers come back, and they're like, oh my god, you're right, like your
Oh, you do
starter
know the
jacket.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
He
then
ends up
like
like
and then
being
he's like
this second
super
under
forgiving.
Pharaoh in
Yeah,
Egypt.
right.
Yeah.
So like he transcends, and he's like, man, I've reached new levels of enlightenment through like this humiliating experience. Had you not thrown me in a hole to be a slave, I would not be this close to God. And right now, like the magical laser beams are like tapped right into my antennae, and I'm picking up the pure God waves right now, and I still love all of you. Like, you dig it. And so like, and I'm just like, and the moral of the story is forgiveness, or like if you eat enough acid, you can talk to God or your brothers. Everyone should get a starter coat.
The whole point of that story was not that he got closer to God, it's that what his brothers intended as evil, God used for good. That he was able to do good for hundreds of thousands and millions of people that would not have happened had he not been a little shit and got thrown in a ditch.
Well, so I guess that's what I have to say to Israel this week is that take this opportunity to use this to elevate yourself, right? Yeah,
Now
you're the
that you're the
fucking,
little shit that got thrown in a ditch.
you know, You're the little bitch that got you're the little bitch that got blown up this week, weren't you? So maybe you were running your yap a little much in your starter jackets, and like, so why don't you turn this into like the cosmic goodness of turning something shitty into something all loving and godlike? And I'm sure
Yes.
they'll do that with ballistic missiles. I'm sure that so.
So for me, and I get that I'm not your typical Christian, um, at least not your typical like fundamentalist type Christian. I I believe in Jesus, and there's no disputing that Jesus was a dude who lived on the planet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no disputing that. There's enough evidence. Um, but Jesus believed in the Old Testament. So if I believe that Jesus is God and that he died and was resurrected again, then if he's saying that shit is true, then I believe it's true. I don't care, honestly, whether it's true or not. It's interesting and I like the stories, and there are components that could help, you know, bolster the way I view life or live life or whatever, lessons I can
Fair
take from
statements.
it to apply to my own life. But in the end, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit
Thank
if that
you.
stuff is real or not. Um, what I care about is that Jesus was real, and that there were enough accounts of what he did and said while he was on this planet that I believe in that dude. And like I said, if he believes that stuff, then yeah, I'm going to take a look at it, and I'm going to, show interest in it, but I don't apply it as much it doesn't carry as much weight with me as just the words, the red letters in the Bible, the stuff that actually came out of Jesus' mouth.
Yeah,
So
fair enough. Well, not that I'll ever get invited back, but next time, let's talk about
you never
what
know.
you.
Brittany is moving this week. If anybody's wondering why the hell Brittany is not here,
Why
Brittany
did you
is
have to ruin
moving
it?
this. I
You could
know.
have like brought
Oh,
this into
I
the
know.
rapture. You could be like, right now, Brittany is like, she's
Brittany
been
got sucked
raptured.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, she probably feels like she's been sucked up. She probably wishes she would be raptured because it's been a very stressful week for her. So, yes, so she's taking a quick little respite. And I appreciate that you were willing to fill her very tiny elven shoes because she is
I can't
a
do her
teeny
justice. I'm
tiny little
sorry.
person. But this has been delightful. I'm sure we will have you back eventually. Because who doesn't enjoy who doesn't enjoy hearing the cynic's take on
dark
mystical
brooding,
shit.
dark brooding hatred for the Christian faith. Yeah, tons of people
Yeah,
enjoy that.
yeah,
So.
absolutely. Probably more people enjoy that than actually enjoy listening to Christians talk about Christianity. So, so
I think that
you
says a
might
lot.
just cause this podcast to blow up in ratings. Who knows?
These two ladies got a grumpy bastard to come on to bitch about Christians. So, well,
Oh,
thank
you
you
do
for
it so
having me.
well. Yep. Have a good night.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching this episode. Please subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think in the comments and if you have any topics that you would like for us to address in later episodes. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.